I am the Shogun!
In the shadows of Japan's bustling streets lies a notorious organization that has shaped the country's underworld for centuries. Though mythologized in video games, films, and manga, the reality is far more complex. Often compared to the ancient samurai of feudal Japan, their code of unwavering loyalty, honor, and strict discipline is overshadowed by a chilling ruthlessness. Beneath their business attire lie bodies scarred with intricate tattoos, elaborate symbols of commitment and sacrifice. Though some believe them to be akin to a modern-day Robin Hood, claiming to protect the weak while navigating the grey areas of legality. These fabrications only serve to mask their true motives of power and profit. Operating in plain sight, running quasi-legal businesses, a sophisticated mafia governed by a web of allegiance and betrayal, where the line between friend and foe is razor thin. In today's video, we will peel back the layers of Japan's unique underworld, uncovering its feudal origins, its deep connections with the political and socio-economic fabric of Japan, while exposing the truth behind the myth of the often misunderstood Yakuza. Arigato minasan. If you enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing. I would love to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help to make that dream a reality. On with the video. Their name is said to have derived from the worst possible hand in a Japanese card game, 893, phonetically pronounced as Yaku-san. This eventually evolved into Yakuza, meaning gangster. However, the origins are somewhat murky, steeped in myth and legend, much like the samurai of old. The main theories take place from the beginning of the Edo period, a time when Japan was ruled by the Tokugawa shogunate. You can watch my other video to find out more. After centuries of civil war, the country found themselves in a period of relative peace. During this time, Japan's rigid feudal system was in full force, and society was divided into strict social classes. Some, particularly those on the fringes, found ways to survive through less than honorable means. There are several theories of the Yakuza origins, most commonly accepted to have emerged from two distinct groups: the tekiya, or street peddlers, who dealt in stolen or low-quality goods. They can still be found in modern Japan, outside popular tourist locations selling overpriced food, and the bakuto, or gamblers, who ran illegal gambling dens. Both groups existed outside of the law, said to have turned to criminality to get by in an unforgiving society. Another theory suggests that the Yakuza descended from the kabuki mono, literally the crazy ones. These were groups of masterless samurai, also known as ronin. They roamed the countryside in flamboyant clothing, wielding oversized swords and generally causing trouble. The kabuki mono were known for their violent behavior and disregard for the strict codes of samurai conduct. Over time, these groups evolved into organized gangs, offering protection to local merchants. Protection most couldn't politely decline. A romanticized theory is that the Yakuza descended from a more honorable beginning, groups of ordinary townspeople and wayward ronin banding together to protect their communities from the excesses of corrupt samurai and government officials. Much like Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, a motley crew working together to act as Japan's original neighborhood watch. These men were seen as heroes by the common folk, though this theory is most likely concocted by the Yakuza themselves to provide a more legitimacy to their status while increasing their mythology. By the turn of the 18th century, the Bakuto-operated illegal gambling rings were becoming ever-present amongst the Japanese populace. Famous Bakuto such as Kunisade Chuji became legend, a popular figure thought to have been responsible for the romanticized, chivalrous bandit image, as he used his ill-gotten gains to help villagers during famine before being martyred at a public execution. Though such noble deeds are remembered, cheating and violence were more commonplace. It was in this environment that the first hierarchical structure of the gangs began to form, built on a foundation of loyalty to the group's leader, known as the Oyabun, literally parent part. In exchange for protection and guidance, members called Kobun, or child part, offered their loyalty, often for life. Over time, these Bakuto gangs expanded, controlling territory and maintaining order within the criminal underworld. The Yakuza also adopted distinct forms of identification. During the Edo period, Iruzumike, literally insert ink punishment, was a punishment meant to mark the offender so all would know his crimes. The location of the tattoo was determined by the type of crime. Thieves were tattooed on the arm, murderers on the head. The shape of tattoo was based on where the crime occurred. It's only natural that gang members would collect these iruzumi as a rite of passage, until eventually full-body tattoos became a trademark of membership. The process of receiving an iruzumi tattoo is long, painful and symbolic, administered through ink-dipped bamboo spikes sharpened to a needle. Intricate designs often depict dragons, koi fish, and cherry blossoms, symbols of strength, endurance, and the impermanence of life. In many ways, these tattoos are a reflection of the Yakuza's own self-image, an art form worn proudly beneath their clothing, representing their loyalty to the Oyabun and a badge of honor. The Edo period saw the foundations of what would become the Yakuza, a time of feudal warlords, shifting alliances, and the rise of criminal groups that would later shape Japan's modern underworld. As Emperor Meiji's restoration of 1868 began to transform Japan's social structure from the ancient feudal system to a more modern state. The country opened its doors to the West, and the samurai class, long the enforcers of Japan's law and order, were ushered into obscurity. Many samurai, now unemployed and left without purpose, found their skills in demand within Japan's rising criminal organizations. The void left by the samurai's exodus was swiftly filled by the criminal gangs, who enforced their will and order, particularly in the city's poorer districts. Even the government now sanctioned their management of street markets and public festivals. These, albeit small positions of power, enabled the Yakuza to gain a veneer of legitimacy in the eyes of the public. Behind this facade lay an even more violent reality. As the Yakuza became more organized, they developed rituals and rules for its members. This was the era that first introduced yubitsume, the infamous practice of severing one's little finger as a form of punishment and a show of loyalty. This practice originated from a samurai tradition, as losing a finger weakened one's ability to wield a sword, making the subordinate more reliant on his master. To perform yubitsume, one lays down a small clean cloth with their hand facing down. Using an extremely sharp knife or tanto, the person cuts the tip of his left little finger just above the top knuckle. He then wraps the severed portion in cloth and submits the package as penance to his oyabun. Should further offences be committed, the ceremony would take place once more, removing the next section of the little finger. More infractions could mean removing portions of the right little finger when no more joints remain on the left. This gruesome practice cemented the Yakuza's reputation as a gang built on discipline and fear. As Japan continued to rapidly modernize, the Yakuza moved into new arenas of crime, including smuggling, extortion, and sanctioned murder. The transition from street peddlers and small-time criminals to a nationwide organized crime syndicate was complete, and by the early 20th century, the Yakuza's power and influence seemed unstoppable. Japan's defeat in World War II left the country in ruins. However, amid the post-war devastation, the Yakuza were able to thrive. With the government and law enforcement struggling to re-establish order, Yakuza gangs stepped into the power vacuum, controlling the black market and smuggling goods into the country. In the absence of a functional economy, they profited from scarcity, hoarding, and selling everything from food to weapons. The Yakuza's relationship with American occupiers during this period is also complex. While many Yakuza members were initially viewed as just another part of Japan's struggling underclass, they soon adapted to the new opportunities that the black market and post-war reconstruction presented. The influx of Western goods and influences provided fertile ground for expansion. In this era, the Yamaguchi-Gumi, now Japan's largest Yakuza group, rose to dominance. Led by Kazuo Taoka, a ruthless and strategic boss, the Yamaguchi-Gumi expanded rapidly, controlling everything from protection rackets and gambling dens to huge development projects across the country. Colloquially known as the Japanese Godfather, Taoka's reputation became legendary after expanding the Yamaguchi-Gumi from a small burglary gang based on the Kobe docks to the world's largest criminal syndicate, with over 10,000 active members at its peak. Notoriously suspicious and wary of rival Yakuza clans, he notably survived an assassination attempt in 1978 when he was shot in the back of the head by a member of the Matsuda Gumi. The attempt humorously occurred during a limbo dance exhibition at a nightclub in Kyoto. Taoka survived, and his attacker was found dead several weeks later in some woods near Kobe. If you're going to hit the king, you best not miss. Taoka would remain in power until his death from a heart attack in 1981. As of today, the Yamaguchi-Gumi is led by Tsukasa Shinobu, a man who spent 13 years in prison for killing a rival boss with a samurai sword. Their notoriety can still be seen throughout popular culture, occupying antagonist roles against Marvel's Wolverine, as well as high-value targets for Agent 47 in the Hitman video game series. Though in modern days the organization is fractured, they continue to operate across Japan and overseas. During the 50s and 60s, the Yakuza began to adopt the sharp-suited, sunglasses-wearing image that would come to define them. The sleek corporate style was no accident. It was designed to project power, sophistication, and control. The Yakuza wanted to be seen as a force that was both part of Japan's economic elite and beyond the reach of law. Their business-like attire gave them the appearance of modern gangsters, while underneath, their tattooed bodies still spoke of their ties to Japan's criminal past. The Yakuza's role in Japanese society is a striking paradox, especially in times of disaster when they have often stepped up as community protectors. After the 1995 Great Hanshin earthquake, Yakuza groups were faster than the government in delivering aid. They played a similar role during the 2011 Tohoku disaster, earning themselves a Robin Hood-like reputation. These acts have fueled the belief that some in Japan view the Yakuza as a force for good, though they remain a criminal organization that has negatively affected the lives of many. Behind the scenes, the Yakuza's operations were marked by a darker reality of violence, extortion, and ruthless enforcement of loyalty. Rituals like the Sakatsuki ceremony, where members pledged their unwavering allegiance to the Oyabun by sharing sake, cemented the rigid hierarchy that bound the organization. These ceremonies, rich in tradition, masked the brutal methods used to maintain order. Betrayal or disobedience are met with swift, often deadly, retribution. Despite the public perception that the Yakuza occasionally acted as protectors, this culture of fear and violence exposes the true nature of their power. It's this contradiction of outward honor and hidden brutality that leaves a lasting imprint on Japan's society. A reminder that beneath the veneer of tradition and philanthropy lies an organization driven by self-preservation and control at all costs. By the early 90s, Japan's economy had entered a period of sharp decline, known as the Lost Decade, and the Yakuza found themselves under increasing pressure. The Anti-Boryokudan Law of 1992, which classified Yakuza organizations as violent groups, significantly restricted their activities. It became illegal for them to conduct business as they had before, and law enforcement began cracking down on their enterprises. As the net tightened, internal power struggles and factional infighting began to spawn, most notably within the Yamaguchi-Gumi. The once dominant crime syndicate splintered as leadership disputes and internal betrayals weakened the organization. The Yakuza, once visible in broad daylight, were pushed underground. Despite their waning influence, the Yakuza adapted, moving into cybercrime and global smuggling operations. They found new ways to survive. However, they were no longer untouchable. The government's clampdown, combined with growing public disillusionment, eroded their influence. Younger generations, uninterested in the new Yakuza lifestyle, began to shun the gangs, and recruitment slowed. One of the most notorious stories of the Yakuza's decline involves Tadamasa Goto, a high-ranking boss who traded sensitive information to the FBI in exchange for a life-saving liver transplant in the United States. Goto's betrayal of Yakuza secrecy for personal gain shocked Japan and became symbolic of the slow disintegration of the old values that had once held the organization together. Goto was a major antagonist in reporter Jake Adelstein's 2009 memoir, Tokyo Vice, which extensively details Goto's liver transplant and alleged criminal activity. In it, Adelstein claims that his police and Yakuza contacts warned him that Goto intended to kill him for exposing his activities. Goto, once considered the most powerful man in Tokyo, was expelled from the Yamaguchi-Gumi. After his forced retirement, he now lives as a Buddhist priest, changing his name to Chue. Today, while the Yakuza still exist, they are a far cry from the powerful and feared organizations they once were. In modern Japan, many Yakuza members live in the shadows, hiding their tattoos beneath long sleeves and operating in an ever-shrinking space where their influence continues to wane. The introduction of Yakuza exclusion ordinances across Japan has made it increasingly difficult for them to conduct business. Many Japanese companies now refuse to associate with known members, banks have closed their accounts, and citizens are discouraged from engaging in business with them. Yet, remnants of their presence are still visible in areas like Kabukicho, Tokyo's notorious red light district, where Yakuza-affiliated businesses operate under a thin veil of legitimacy. Additionally, black companies, corporations with exploitative labor practices, are rumored to have Yakuza ties. Though weakened, the Yakuza have adapted to survive, keeping a foothold in certain sectors, while the broader society works to push them into obscurity, continuing their influence in more subtle, insidious ways. Interestingly, the Yakuza still remain ingrained in the zeitgeist and public cultural consciousness. In popular media, whether films, television shows, manga, or video games, Yakuza characters are still depicted as anti-heroes, often following a strict, albeit warped, code of honor. The romanticized portrayal stands in stark contrast to the reality of their operations today, where they are increasingly viewed as relics of a bygone era. As their numbers dwindle, their iconic tattoos, once worn with pride as a badge of honor and identity, are now symbols of shame. What was once a bold declaration of gang affiliation and resilience is now carefully concealed beneath clothing to avoid the heavy stigma these carry in modern Japanese society. Bathhouses, gyms, and other communal facilities where body art was once displayed with pride now often ban entry to individuals with visible ink. The Yakuza's journey is rooted in Japan's feudal past. Their origins lie in a world of wandering samurai and grew into a force that has shaped Japan's dark underbelly. And while the Yakuza may still lurk in the shadows, their time as Japan's most feared criminal organization is slowly fading into history. As yet, the Yakuza's story is not over, a shadowy force that will forever be a part of Japan's complicated and fascinating history. Minasan, arigatou gozaimashita. It takes a really long time to make these videos, so if you made it this far, I cannot tell you how grateful I am to have you around. If you'd like to help me grow my empire, please like the video and subscribe. I'm hoping to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and every single one of you is important to me. A massive thank you to my first 3 Patreons. You can join my army too and fight alongside them through the link in the description below. Until next time, sayonara.